This is a topic which is a follow-up to the last the question that was asked by a participant here. Now, I must say that the path on this path on abolition campaign against death penalty had been very rough. It had been very tough, and it's not going to be easy. We saw the recent execution of Jabing, which was so intense, and you even had that lawyer who was defending Jabing, who was threatened with contempt proceedings and so on and so forth. And we also had Kirsten, who campaigned valiantly together with Second Chances and other groups trying to save Jabing, and we heard the details from the campaign. It is not an easy one. But I will say that it is definitely much more easier than what it was before. In 2003, I'll come to my personal experience, why I went into the death penalty campaign and what was that defining moment. But before that, when I was involved initially in the death penalty campaign, especially in 2005 in the case of Shanmugam Murugesu, I used to have spent a lot of my personal expenses defending the case, because it is not like now we have professors, we have interns, we have London Queen's Councils where we have developed network over the course of years who are willing to do research. I have been, to a certain extent, of course, there's a cap rank, there's a certain code of ethics at the bar that you got to be detached, but I could not be so detached when it came to this defense of death penalty. So it was financially draining, it was emotionally draining. I used to, in the case of Shanmugam Murugesu, he was caught for drug trafficking, cannabis. He was a national hero, in fact. He was a jet ski star in US. And unfortunately, he had this divorce problem and he caught in this drug trafficking issue. So when I was campaigning, I was organizing the funeral, I was doing the case, I had to come out with the finances, plus, not financing the case as such, but trying to, especially, when it comes to research and all that, I had to just, there was very limited resources available. And you really got to get people paid to do the job and so on and so forth. And also campaigning. So it was case law, casework, going to court, campaigning, arranging funerals, and at the same time, to also counsel the mother, who at 3 a.m. will call you, and she was like wanting to commit suicide. In fact, she even said that, next morning, 6 a.m., she's just going to jump off, and, it was horrendous. So it was there was a lot of pressure I felt. And the thing is that in 2003, I took up this case of Viknes Morti. That was my first case. The case was given to me, I was instructed by Mr. J.B. Jeyaretnam, who could not argue the case at that stage. And that was the baptism of fire that was passed to me. And the case had run its course. It was argued by the best criminal lawyer in Singapore, by Mr. Subhash Anandan. It reached Court of Appeal. And there was only barely 2 weeks that I could take up the issues that Mr. Jeyaretnam was trying to address. I won't go into the issues because we don't have much time. But the thing is that on the eve of the execution, I was before the Court of Appeal. And the then Chief Justice basically said that, look, the case has run its course, the procedure is closed, there's nothing much that you can actually do at this stage. I said, look, I can show all these arguments and just give me a bit more time so that I can present the case even more effectively and I could elucidate more arguments to show that why this man is innocent. He said, no. Then I asked why? Because the procedure is closed. Then my question is the public prosecutor, is the state is maintaining that an innocent man can be hanged because of procedure? And what was the response from the Chief Justice? The answer is yes. Innocent man can be hanged because of procedure. I was shocked. Maybe it was not shocking to the bar that I was, I don't want to go too much into that, but it was very, very shocking to me. It was shocking to my conscience. And the boy, Viknes Morti, stood up and said that, look, I know you're going to execute me tomorrow, but before I get executed, I want to know the grounds of the decision. That my lawyer argued for 3 hours, and please tell me, why are you hanging me? And the Chief Justice's response was, it will be known to you in due course. And you know what happened? Next day they hang him. 3 weeks later they give the grounds of decision. And that's not funny, you know. And it's important that that man before he goes to the gallows needs to know that basic due process requirement why he's being hanged. And the whole process was rushed. There was so much of indecent haste in this entire process, in the legal process. And as if all this was not enough, when he was executed, he had these two sisters. One was 21 and the youngest was 18. And that was at the crematorium. And Viknes Morti, if there's a potential miscarriage of justice in that case. He swore by his innocence till the last minute before he was executed. And when I went to the crematorium, and apparently he had struggled before his execution, according to some of the prison officers. And the mother, and the prison was actually rushing the execution, rushing the funeral arrangement. In fact, they told the family that, at a certain time, like 1 o'clock or whatever, if you don't do the funeral, that we will conduct the funeral arrangement. It was like a state funeral, not like state funeral of Mr. Nathan. It's a different kind of, anyway, no clemency granted. Lord have mercy. So anyway, the point is that when I went to the crematorium, I was telling the police that, look, give the family time to grieve. It's important, not only just execution, but you must give the family the time to grieve. Take the body back. So I arranged with the Chinese Buddhist funeral company to get their funeral van to come there, hers, and so that this body could be transferred to this van, so that these people can have, some kind of grieving moment. And is it all necessary? So when I went to the crematorium, I saw the mother, literally like snatching the body away from the police. She was jumping onto the hearse that was arranged by the state, and he was pummeling his chest because Viknes had slightly, his eyes was ajar, and a little girl that, I think the niece thought that he was alive, and then she started screaming, saying that, our uncle is alive, and the mother thought that he's really alive. She went hysterical. She went and pummeled the chest, thinking that he was alive to revive him. When I looked at that, I asked myself, that was the defining moment for me, that should our economic success be tainted with such cruelty? Will our humane response to the death penalty will make our metropolis collapse? It wouldn't. So I told myself that the next case comes, I will have to gather a group of people, like-minded people, and that opportunity came. And of course, Think Center was also there campaigning. And we cannot be just campaign online, but we have to go to the ground and start campaigning. And I will share some of my experiences over the years that we have been campaigning, how this campaign could be strengthened. Support of family members is so crucial, and that's something that Lynn and Kristen have touched. And I will say that our problem is also, I know that the family is very genuine and they will speak to the media and stuff like that, but sometimes this media, especially state media, is our biggest problem in Singapore. You know that. So they will campaign against the anti-death penalty campaign. And we have to it's like sometimes I imagine, how Kristen and Lynn and, they speak to the family, and then you get, you can't deny, state resources are so powerful. You may not get the resources of the statistics of the state, but they will get the telephone number of the families. So they will have another story which will support the state ideology to the road to the execution. So that's something that we on the ground, not that we want to brainwash the family, but we need to educate the kind of responses that we give and what kind of implications it can have, that we don't have an agenda. And Yong Wee Kong's campaign was a massive campaign in 2009, and this was a campaign in the Speaker's Corner. So this is, besides, not using, but working with the family members in solidarity and walking them through this campaign, it's also important that publicly visible places like Speaker's Corner is the only place that we can really protest or demonstrate and come together. And this is one of the, a very good campaign that we had, which had a very huge turnout in 2010. And other mediums of campaign will be exhibitions. And I think I remember Seelan Pale, he did in 2011 the first exhibition at the Post Museum in 2011. And we have also Toji Kazama, who is he's a Japanese, American Japanese, right? Yeah, he's a Japanese photographer who will be traveling in the region. And I think he might be here. Rachel will post this information on Singapore Anti-Death Penalty Campaign group. It's very sad, so it's called SADPC, you know, because of all the emotional campaigns that we are subjected to. And so look for Toji Kazama when he will basically, his exhibition is about how there are various modes of execution around the world, like shooting, gas chambers, electric chair, and so on and so forth. So he will be taking you through this exhibition. And campaign videos, we saw how there was a campaign video by Lynn when we did the petition outside the Istana. And it was very interesting in 2005 that when we had this first massive anti-death penalty campaign, a lot of this support came from the arts group for Shanmugam. And we did, this group of musicians, hard rock group, they had a concert in the substation, which was infiltrated by the police, but they managed to continue and have the space. And I think some of the members here are, are here. And they released also songs for Sam, a CD of their own music, and it was an experience for me. It was like how this hard rock group were expressing themselves against the death penalty. And I published a book called Hung at Dawn in 2005. So I thought it was also important that not only to do this case, but I had one difficulty because I was like campaigning aggressively on the death penalty front, and I didn't have the Online Citizen or TRE, all the social media that we have right now. So it was like the state versus the campaigners. So it was like, whatever I was doing, it was like, there was an article in the Straits Times that said, oh, lawyers doing this publicity stunt. So I told him, yes, it's about publicity, it's publicizing the cause, not about me, but what to do, I have to be involved in this, in the work. So I thought it's important that I tell the stories to the public, at the same time also explain where, as a campaigner I come from, and why I do what I do. And also, Once a Jolly Hangman by Alan Shadrick, it was a critique on the way the death penalty had been administered in Singapore. He served a prison sentence because of contempt of court, and I shan't comment further on the case. Another time. In Yong Wee Kong's case, it was a very inspiring moment. After Lin released that Al Jazeera's video, Al Jazeera's program, which was screened internationally, Yong Wee Kong, the petition for Yong Wee Kong, we had a lot of tremendous support for petition. A lot of people petitioned against the execution of Yong Wee Kong to the president, and the family was active in getting, collecting signatures in Sabah. We had, I think, 20,000 in Sabah, and in Singapore we had a couple of thousands, and Malaysia it was about 80,000, 90,000. So 109,000 people petitioned for Yong Wee Kong, and that was really a massive campaign. So it's not just, you can just write a petition to the president who does not have the power, but it's a cabinet that advises. Even that we have to find out through court. So, this is quite a normal way of demonstrating the support for the anti-death penalty movement is to basically get a T-shirt printed, and we had Give Life Second Chance. That was quite popular, and also we had subsequently a movement in Singapore, Second Chances. Now, what is extremely, after all our efforts fail, we don't stop. We don't say that, look, the state has decided to execute, we stop there. No. that is where your campaign has to be even more strengthened. And what we did, this is Shanmugam Murugesu's mother. Shanmugam was executed on, I will remember it as a Friday the 13th, a black day in 2005. He was executed. This is Madam Lakshmi, his mother. She came to campaign for Wen Nguyen. Nguyen, this is Australian Vietnamese, was hanged in Singapore in December. Shanmugam was hanged in May 2005. Nguyen was hanged in 2005 in December. So it was an act of solidarity by Shanmugam to come and support, Shanmugam's mother to support Nguyen's mother in Singapore to stop the execution. So we thought that that was very powerful, and that international media was following up on this story to campaign for Nguyen thereafter. This was Shanmugam's twin son, and this was a statement that Shanmugam, who was sharing the neighboring cell with Nguyen, said that basically don't let this boy become an obituary, and he says that even his life is gone, please save this. He feels that he's innocent, and he feels strongly about Nguyen's case. So we have a message from one inmate to another inmate. One inmate's family campaigning for another inmate's family, even just after the execution. That compassion, the element of that statement that comes out during this moment is very, very powerful for everyone. Now this is the vigil for Amara Tochi. This was really, really terrible because this boy was this African boy who was 19 years old, whose passion was to play soccer. He came from an extremely poor family. Since 14 years old, he was already a soccer star. He was deluded by someone to come to Singapore to deliver African herbs, and that guy will give him some money so that he can find an accommodation and fulfill his ambition as a soccer player. I mean, it was like a small amount, $1,000 or $2,000. Why would he want to actually sacrifice? He just wants to find his passion, but unfortunately, he was hanged, and I went to Nigeria for his campaign, and this was I managed to get Lucy Davies, who was an aggressive campaigner at that time. She was helping the family, not so much in the campaign, but helping the families of raising fund for the family to get one of the Nigerian lawyers to fly down to Singapore. And when I went there to Nigeria, I managed to get this T-shirt and his soccer jersey and the shorts, and the family was so poor. I was in the capital of Nigeria, and the family came. The brother and sister, the two of his brothers, took a bus, which was like they traveled 8 hours, and the bus broke down halfway, and I was waiting in the airport, and it was like half an hour before I had to leave. I said, to the Nigerian NGOs that, look, the flight will be leaving soon. I can't take this jersey. And said, please wait. I said, I can't wait. The plane won't wait for me. So as I was walking towards the gate, the brothers were yelling and they were shouting and saying that, Brother Ravi, we have got the T-shirt, and they were waving their jersey that they've brought, the brother's jersey, to pass it to me to Singapore, as if like that was, that was what they could at least do. I mean, that was what was empowering for the family even at that moment, And so we thought that, that we should at least get his T-shirt. I don't think so we can do all these things outside Changi prison now, but we did explore. What's also important is that not just execution, outside Changi prison, the funeral. I tell you, if those who believe in death penalty, especially the government leaders, they must go to the constituency to see not only the death penalty of, like unfortunate circumstances where, the MPs go and visit, those funerals of their constituents. It is important because you're punishing the family. You're punishing the poor people. You're punishing people who are stuck in the unfortunate social circumstances. And Madam Lakshmi, I don't know why, I don't know how she survived this. It was really, really horrendous. And it is important that during this time, that with the permission of the family, if we can take pictures, if we can take videos, and to, bring the pain and the trauma to the public to understand. I mean, it's not just important to just believe in, oh, death penalty is deterrent, blah, 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 and all that, but you're not prepared to see the execution. You must be prepared to go and see the execution. You must be prepared to talk to the family. You must be prepared to go and see in the funeral. You can't see all this and you don't want to see this, but you want to hold certain statistical analysis in Parliament. And it's very, very important that we also hear from what the death row inmates have got to say. Sometimes I just get their letters, like Yong Wee Kong, letters from the prison. The online citizen used to cover, each time he has, Yong Wee Kong, he goes into a lot of meditation. He meditates from 6 a.m. right up to 10 p.m. And he has a lot of his own vibrations and meanings to life, and he wants to see that others are reformed and don't want to be in this, want them to be caught in the same situation. So he writes very prolifically in Chinese, and we get it translated. And the online media was very helpful as to what he got to say. I mean, we hear about this death penalty and we hear about life imprisonment, the prospect of people being reformed. That's the reason why it is very, very important that we always see an alternative, not just death penalty, but why life imprisonment is also important, because they see a prospect of change. And the penal reforms should consider this aspect as well, because that is part of the, the penal process is rehabilitation or restorative justice. And journalists and documentary filmmakers, not only we campaigners get exhausted, they also get exhausted. And it's important that we network with them. And it's because of Lynn, because of Martin C., who used to help us, and now currently Jason Su, that we get these stories out. And we also had the recent film by a Singaporean filmmaker, Apprentice. It at least stirred some emotions at Keynes in terms of the way the death penalty is administered, not centrally on the debate of the death penalty, but how the execution takes place. Litigation and court process. This is, it is only through this litigation that there is visibility. And this is where the issue of cause lawyering comes, whereby, some of us believe in the cause against the death penalty, and if you have a case against, that there is a miscarriage of justice or a problem in the system, and that's highlighted in the court. So what happens? The state media will give its version, and that's all. But the thing is, it's important that citizens there is an element of, the courts are transparent, and the courts are open, and public can view the proceedings. And at the same time, we as campaigners, we can engage in the process. And through this advocacy, through the court advocacy, we can bring that court advocacy to the public. So it is important that I have been doing this quite a bit in terms of bringing this, the court challenges to the public domain, and also campaign from whatever platforms, online media and otherwise. And I'm glad that Eugene is also currently, he's here, and he's very careful of contempt of law. I could see that, but that I'm glad that people like Eugene and others have come forward to carry on with this fight. And this is basically an overview of local campaigns. And now I will briefly touch on regional campaigns. This was all what I learned and what I explored. But of course now the campaigners have strategized all this. And in 2009, I first went to the Bar Council of Malaysia to seek support, because it's a lawyers group and they gave a platform for me to raise the case of Yong Wee Kong. And I did a press conference there. Eugene is laughing, saying that, yeah, of course I lost the hair because of the campaign, yes. So the Bar Council of Malaysia gave me the platform to do a press conference on Yong Wee Kong's case. And thereafter, I realized the difficulty. It's not just Bar Council can do so much, but you got to tackle this with the Malaysian government. We can say that this might not work, or whatever the Malaysian government says, Singapore government is not going to listen or whatever, but at the end of the day, we need to try. Imagine your own brother or sister is going to be executed. What will you do? You will go the extra mile. So it's important that the Malaysian citizens know that their citizen is being executed in Singapore, and they need to know the reasons. So I went to the Malaysian Parliament, and there was a press conference arranged by the Malaysian parliamentarians from different opposition parties. I realized that, of course, my access is not the government. We got to get the opposition. Opposition file an emergency motion, and government gets interested before opposition takes that. So basically, it was a positive response by the Malaysian government. The Malaysian foreign minister, in fact, had a meeting with me at the parliament itself. It was a private meeting, and then he went to the press and said that the Malaysian government will intervene. You see, when I went there, people were saying that, you won't reach the parliament, and then after that, the Malaysian government is not going to, the Singapore government will definitely influence the Malaysian government, but it was the other way. I mean, it was like the Malaysian government finally intervened during a single press conference. And lobbying parliament, it's not just a neighboring parliament, and this was my lobbying in 2006 or 7 when I went to the Nigerian parliament to lobby against the execution of Amara Tochi, and a parliamentary resolution was passed to call the Singapore government to stop the execution. And in fact, the Nigerian lawyers were very creative. They were trying to file an application to compel the Nigerian government to file a complaint at the International Court of Justice, because because there was some issue of miscarriage of justice in his case. So the lawyers were convinced, and they felt that the government should file a complaint. There's an International Court of Justice, but it's only open to governments. Individual civil society or NGOs can't do. So the government can file a complaint at the International Court of Justice. The International Court of Justice can issue a temporary stay order pending the full hearing of the matter. So they asked the Nigerian government to file a complaint. Nigerian government refused to, so what they did was they wanted to file an application to the court to compel the government to ask to get an order, to compelling order against the government, to compel the government to file an application in the International Court of Justice. But before all that, Tochi's execution had already taken place. But at least we had the government, we had the president of Nigeria, and we also had debate in the African continent, some parts of where they have death penalty regimes, and there was a debate. And I also had an opportunity to address the European Parliament, the subcommittee on death penalty, on the death penalty situation in Singapore. So there were a lot of members of European Parliament who I managed to network, and they were supportive of the work and the campaign. And in fact, I believe that during the time, the European delegation wrote to the Singapore government to not to proceed with the execution against Amara Tochi, and also this matter. We also have. It's also important to not just network with the NGOs. Of course, we also network with besides the press conference in the parliament and so on and so forth, there are parliamentarians against death penalty. There's a nominated member of parliament who spoke up against the Misuse of Drugs Act, MDA, when it was passed, the amendment. But there is an organization, a group called Parliamentarians Against Death Penalty. There are Malaysian MPs who are involved, and it'll be quite useful to also network with parliamentarians. And in Singapore, you have all the various embassies who are also interested in these issues. So we should actually network with them as well. And the academic research of Roger Hood, which was briefly mentioned earlier, was very crucial because Professor Roger Hood did a study on the campaign on Yong Wee Kong, on our campaign on Yong Wee Kong in Malaysia. And the conclusion of his study is that Yong Wee Kong's campaign from Singapore to Malaysia had a lot of impact in reigniting the debate in Malaysia. That was one of the conclusions in his study. So the cross-border advocacy is so important here, especially when foreign nationals are involved, and a lot of Malaysians are executed and are going to be executed in the next couple of months, which is why the campaign, this cross-border network is so important, and the fact that when you travel to Africa, when you travel to Malaysia, and you engage the media and so on and so forth, you also reignite debate in these places about death penalty. And of course, I don't have to tell you about Amnesty International, especially they do urgent actions, which is very powerful. And we have a regional organization called Anti-Death Penalty Asia Network. It was a network of all the Asian organizations. And we cannot definitely ignore United Nations, because UN had issued at least 3 or 4 statements against the execution of the Australian Vietnamese who was executed, against Amara Tochi, Shanmugam, and even Wen Yuen. Did they issue a statement for Jabing? United Nations also issued a statement for Jabing. It's not that easy to get UN to issue a statement against unlawful execution, against citizens. It's not that easy, because it has to go through the UN reporter, United Nations special reporter for summary executions, and it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of attention, because of so many cases that he is receiving. So, and when UN statement comes, it goes international, also to the international media itself. There is a European delegation in Singapore, and there's a member of the European delegation who is here, and who's amongst us, and we are very, very grateful to the delegation that they have taken this interest to come here. Thank you so much. And there's Lauren Payne. And regionally, we also have the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights Regional Office, which is based in Bangkok. So I, in fact, met up with one of the representatives 2 days ago, following up on updating the UN representative of the other executions which are going to take place in Singapore. So now you see, with all this, we are better prepared. We are, as to how we are going to approach the subject of a prospective execution coming. What can we do? We all can't be running around helter-skelter. We have to get organized. Some of us who are gifted in writing, some of us go to court, some of us campaign, some of you have to take care of the family. It all cannot be done by one person, and you've got to engage all these various organizations and international bodies. And not to forget also the Human Rights Watch and the World Coalition Against Death Penalty, which we just had a World Coalition meeting in Oslo in July. This is a conglomeration of all the death penalty. It's like a mini United Nations of all the death penalty organizations around the world, based in France. And you will see that Rachel did this Singapore, please abolish the death penalty. It was voted as the most polite protest in the world in Oslo, and there was a mini protest against Rachel for not protesting enough. Thank you. I just forgot to mention one positive outcome is that, and I think this must be mentioned, when we started the death penalty campaign over a period of like 6 years from 2003, when I said that an innocent man can be hanged for want of procedure and so on and so forth, in Yong Wei Kong's case in 2009, the Court of Appeal reversed that position. It was so great to appear before the Court of Appeal and to see that the judges were, opened to reopen all this judicial principle and revisit the subject matter. So things have changed. And there were a lot of people who were saying that we were giving false hope to all the executions that took place from 2003, Viknes Morti, right up to before Wei Kong, all these cases. They said, oh, these activists always give false hope. For Wei Kong's case, the law changed. I'm not saying that actually we are responsible for the law to be changed, but we are saying that definitely it's important that for us to have the change, we become the agents of that change. And the ripples that came over the years, there was this wave of change that took place, and it was a very empowering experience for us that we were part of that change. And you know what? Finally, there's nothing wrong to be hopeful, because hope finally spoke in Yong Wei Kong's case. So I think that with this positive outcome, it's not only always negative, that we had this positive development, and we should continue with the campaign with definitely your support. Thank you.